Hey everybody, welcome to Smokescreen. Tony, Craig, Dan, Tom. This is our nearly 10th test episode, if you will. Maybe
Test? We're still in the testing
still
stage.
testing, but whatever, we'll figure it out. Today's topic will be Fight Club kind of thing. You first brought it up? Jeepers. You scared me, everybody.
That later.
Yeah.
So Dan threw out the idea of what was it? You explained, just fights.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it started with, you asked for topics. I'm like fist fights, because it's an interesting topic because it's one I've never been in a fist fight. I've never been punched. I've never thrown a punch, and I even have dreams about punching, but I can't. I mean, it's like I go this slow, and I realize. I mean, I know I'm going this slow in the dream, and it's like, and I'm so frustrated. I'm like, what the? It's like my brain doesn't understand how to project that because it hasn't happened.
Okay. So you've never been in a fist fight. How about any good karate scissor kicks?
No, not even like a real wrestling or any kind of thing like that. I mean,
elbow to the throat.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where you're at some point you're kind of like, boy, could I take a punch? What does that feel like? Does it, in the movies it's like, bam, but then sometimes people are like, oh, my knuckles, and sometimes people are like, it's no problem. Do jaws really break easily? Like, I don't want to pay for dental
I don't want to find out.
implants.
But don't at some level you want to know what it feels like to get punched.
Yeah.
Can you want to get punched?
I kind of do.
Well,
by
that's
the way,
why we're here today, ladies and gentlemen.
Punch fest.
You get to guess the puncher, Dan. Guess the puncher.
By the way, the fake sound effects, that's an audio, digital, AI generated Oreo back there.
Behind us. Yeah, and it was quiet until we started recording.
And it cued
Dan,
the
did you
Oreos.
grow up with brothers or sisters?
Yeah, so I have two brothers, one younger, one older.
And you didn't get into wrestling matches with them?
We did not get
How
into
is that
wrestling matches.
possible?
I don't know. I think, my mom was it was a very Leave It to Beaver kind of setting, so it would be rude
You were clean
to
cut.
raise hands.
Raised.
Yeah.
Right.
We went to church. The only time I had to put my foot down it was in the summertime. We were at Wisconsin Dells. We were going out to eat, and my mom wanted us to wear sweaters and wool sweaters in the summer because it was going to look better. And I'm like, I'm not wearing this. And I said, I'm not wearing it. I stopped my foot and I walked out. And I just remember my dad laughing. I don't remember if I had to wear a sweater or not, but again, no slaps, no abuse. I mean, just again.
Man.
I'm just very, very
Interesting.
very lost when it comes to physical.
We're putting that on your resume, son. I've got a younger
Tony?
brother who's, as you can tell, I'm thin. He's not. He's bigger than me. He's built. And I was a horrible, probably older brother. We get along great now, but I would pick on him mercilessly. And the only thing that saved me was I could run faster than he could. Otherwise, I would have gotten just pummeled.
There
I
you
deserve it. I would have deserved it too. But,
Interesting.
but that never devolved into a fist fight.
How about as an adult, any altercations or close calls with
So the only time I've ever instigated a fist fight was I was probably 12. And again, I was a very small child, and one of our neighbors, this was in the winter, one of our neighbors was an absolutely enormous young man. I mean big. And they decided they were going to do a pile-on of Tony. And so we were all in our big snowsuits, and he piled on me, and he wouldn't get off. And he was probably even at that age 200 plus pounds. He was a big kid. And I was starting to feel like I couldn't move. I was starting to feel like I couldn't breathe. This was getting so I like in my mind to imagine that I physically pushed him off me, but I'm sure that's not what happened. I'm sure he just got off. Well, I came up swinging, and I don't even think I hit him. If I did, I got him in the big mushy snowsuit.
Yeah.
And I pretty quickly realized I'm punching at a kid not only that I like, but who could also drop me with a whisper. But that was just sheer adrenaline from the fear of what I thought was going to be a suffocation. So
Oh yeah.
That's interesting because go ahead.
he didn't swing back, luckily. I mean,
He's too fat. I hope he doesn't come after you now. But kind of a good point. We talked a little bit on the way up here about this, Dan and I didn't really think of that kind of a fight where it was more of like a self-defense, or that you maybe were, as a kid, again, like self-defense or escape. Like
if I
maybe
had,
have hit somebody, but not like a fist fight.
if I had the chance to think about it for 1 second, I never would have done it. It was just pure instinct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant on this story. I grew up with 2 younger brothers, and we were always beating the crap out of each other, doing something. I don't think it was through hatred. It was a lot of times through maybe boredom. I don't know.
Sure.
But and there were a couple times where my brothers would do things to instigate the trouble.
Oh, really?
Like there was one time where I was reading my comic book, minding my own business, brand new one that I'd just gotten. And my brother Kurt ran into the room, my brother Paul ran into the room, grabbed the comic from me, and ran out of the room. And I'm like, what in the heck are you even thinking? And they had the front door propped open so that they could have it with a string. And then my other brother Kurt was on the motorcycle outside. So they ran out, and they're sitting on the front, vroom, 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 waiting for me to come running out of the house. I went out through the back door, came around the house, and almost caught them. And then then they just took off on the motorbike. Yeah, laughing, of course. Gosh. And then I ended up getting on my 10-speed and just trying to chase them out into the fields. And if you look at the fields, they're crazy.
It's a field.
They got me way up on the hill over here, and then they drove back to the house and locked it up tight.
Oh my! That sounds premeditated, pretty hard.
I had to climb in through the wood chute to get in, and when I was down in the basement, my brother Kurt jumped out of the dark, and he's like, "Blah!" And I'm like, "Oh!" And that instantaneous change of adrenaline would have saved his life. Honest to God, it saved his life because I was ready to kill those guys.
Yeah.
But that I'm like, it caught me so well that it changed the whole progress of things.
Oh,
now, what if it would have turned the other way? That instant adrenaline, you I would have swung at him, not knowing who it was. And he's missing a few teeth.
Well, that would have been a different story. Yeah, that would have changed the projection of both of our lives forever.
Interesting. And now you hate comic books ever since then, correct?
Well, to wrap that story up too, something else happened that same day probably, and he ended up in tears and he tore my comic book in half.
Oh boy!
Which yeah, that again, I think he had a death wish that day. I don't know what it was.
Interesting. Yeah. And how old were you guys roughly?
That was probably
a couple weeks ago.
That was a couple weeks ago. Yeah. No, that was actually in high school. So they definitely knew better than that. But it was
interesting.
And fisticuffs weren't something that we would ever really try to avoid. We just never had to go that far. There's a 3-year difference between each of the brothers.
Okay.
So that there was quite a bit of size difference going into that.
Was it often those two against you?
I was gonna say that,
sometimes, and my youngest brother, he was like this little token, and if you could get him on your side, you always had it. It was always 2 against 1.
2 against 1.
But it was tricky. It was a tricky maneuvering of youth. But then as far as adulthood, and I've got a story about a fight that almost happened, never did, thank God, that is pretty tense. I was taking some photographs for a girlfriend at that time down at Hayman Falls. Remember where that is, Tom? You guys might not know where that is, but it's an abandoned dam that it's just a place for people to go and hang out, go swimming or whatnot. They had a little park there. And so I'm taking pictures. I got my tripod, I got my camera, I got my cowboy hat on, I got my samurai sword for these pictures, right? And I'm minding my own business, and there were like 3 other people in this whole park. And of course, these 3 people had to come over and see what the heck I was doing. And 3 young guys from Shawano area. I didn't know them at all. and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm taking some pictures for my girlfriend." He's like, "Yeah, what do you got there?" It was a samurai sword, and then I did a couple of tricks for him, and it's like they weren't impressed. And then the one guy is like, "Well, let me see that." And I'm like, "Oh God, oh God," and I'm like, I didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to get jumped by these guys, and it was starting to get tense.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of held the hilt out, and he slid it out, and he's doing tricks too now. He's doing tricks, and then he's doing like kicks in the air and things like that. And I'm like, oh shit, this is not going to end well. And then he kind of swings the blade down at my head, and he hits my cowboy hat and actually knocks right into my skull.
Wow.
And I'm like, at this point, I am livid. I am just seeing red, but I know this is not a time where I can physically do anything,
Right.
because he's number one, he's got a sword now. I'm an idiot. I gave up my weapon.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of held the hilt out like this, and I just didn't even look at him. I just held it out like this, and then he slid it in there, and then they walked away because I didn't say anything else. And then one of the other two guys that was there apologized on the way out.
Okay.
But holy shit, that was tense.
I never
And
heard
I'll
that
talk.
story.
Well, that was not one I like to share because it was not
Right?
a
That's
very.
traumatic.
It could have been. I could have gotten throttled easily.
Yeah.
And
with a sword in there,
yeah,
who knows what?
yeah, that was not pleasant.
I mean, speaking of, to that point of diffusing situations, like, I mean, I didn't get in fights probably because I knew how to diffuse situations. Like I didn't get really bullied, but some of the bullies would, like, well, let's try Dan. And, but I was always nice and humorous. And if you're quick witted,
I was just going to say that's a biggie.
you can get out of it. And so, and if you don't let it bother you, then they just kind of give up and all that. So yeah, a lot of situations, diffusing is
Right.
before any fighting.
I was a lot the same way. I just wanted to avoid it. I really wasn't into that whole thing. But what has been interesting to me as I've gotten a little bit older is I want to know what it feels like to get punched.
All right.
And I don't want to get into a fight. And I was going to turn to this eventually.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't necessarily be that I want to get in a fight with an actual adversary. I would come to one of you guys and say, let's find out.
All right. Has anybody ever had a good swift kick in the gonads?
No.
Not intentionally playing some sports, but
Yeah, I would say
I believe it was my sister Danielle that pretty much deliberately, I was maybe prepubescent to know that would hurt so bad. And I don't know what was going on. And she might remember, but something to the extent of, well, I'll kick you in the nuts or whatever. And before I knew it, she got a good kick to my nuts. And I was just like, holy criminy, I'm in third grade. This hurts like hell. What about when you're past puberty? Jeez Louise.
What about when they come down?
I was when my first son was being born. As a father, you're in the room basically gratuitously. You're supposed to help them breathe, but come on, they know what they're doing. I was there trying to be supportive, trying to be funny, trying to lighten the mood, and I said that I thought getting kicked in the gonads was more painful than childbirth.
Oh boy!
And I had to
heard
continue
that,
with the story. And my reasoning for that was, and this goes for my wife now. She had 3 kids after that. Every woman who's had a child, when the baby is born, if you ask them, would you do that again? They'd say, in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Ask any guy that's ever gotten kicked in the gonads if he'd ever want to do that again. And I've never heard anybody say that.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I suppose.
I want another one.
if a baby popped out after you got kicked, would you? Maybe then.
Or something cool like, hey, you get kicked in the nuts, you get a PlayStation 5.
Right.
All right, I'll do it.
Or if it's like Mario hitting, you get coins or something.
It didn't go over like I thought it would in the delivery room.
Dang, Dan, that's a fun game idea.
Right.
Nut kicker
Oh my gosh.
by Nintendo. Before I get to my stories, I guess I'll get to my stories. I have a few. The fight one I told Dan about on the way up here, that like, again, 3rd grade area, my brother Bill, Craig knows.
Yeah.
My best friend was Tommy Martin, lived a few doors away. And one day my older brother Bill, who was probably, I think he's about 6 or 7 years older than me, he's like, hey, why don't you guys beat up on each other, and whoever makes the other one cry first, I'll give you a quarter.
Oh
and
my
me and Tommy
God.
are like, okay. So it wasn't like, I'm sure it wasn't like a lot of fist to the face and stuff. It was probably more wrestling
Mhm.
and squeezing and little punching here
Start
and there.
crying. Start crying.
And if I remember right, I did subdue my buddy.
Oh boy.
And it probably wasn't bawling, but a little bit of a cry or whimper. And I go to get my money, and my brother Bill was like,
Now
I'm
you
not
gotta
paying-
beat. Now you gotta beat me.
no, he's like, I'm not paying you guys. And then I think we both like burst into tears. We're like, no, I'm not giving you any money.
Brutal.
But then as an adult, I think like you guys kind of alluded, I've maybe helped deflect a few scenarios with a little bit of humor or my boyish charm,
looks.
whatever.
Right?
that was what it was.
Seduced.
But also have helped, maybe break up. I mean, Craig was
You know
pretty
what?
good at breaking up some fights. I remember
that-
drinking parties, guys get stupid, and you were pretty good at.
Oh, like
Well,
a
that
voice of
was
reason.
what I was going to tell you about. I've had some martial arts background, a little bit in self-taught in high school what you could self-teach at that time, but then I had a couple of courses that I took in judo and taekwondo and at the Mark Griesbach's school with
Okay.
Mike Sponik. There were like 7 different styles of martial arts. Never ever have I had to use it to fight somebody, but I've used it to pull fights apart a number of times. And it was
Wow.
just weird because I didn't even know some of these people that I was involved with, but
Okay.
the girlfriends had come up because I was kind of a big dude. Like, can you pull them apart? Come on. And I'm like, okay. So I'd go in and I'd pull them apart, and then I'd be like, hey man, you really don't want to do this. And just kind of downplay it.
Let me tell you a
Quite a
funny
bit.
Well,
joke.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know the first rule of martial arts.
What is
Never
that?
give up your samurai sword.
There you go.
I totally failed that one. Thanks, Tony.
Sure.
Right.
The other story, as a young adult, probably 19 or 20, I went downtown Appleton with a couple of buddies drinking,
Oh,
roommates at the time. And I wouldn't say I was hitting on a girl, but I was being flirtatious with a young woman. And then come to find out, her boyfriend's there and he's not real happy with me. And so as we were getting ready to leave, he's like, dude, if you want, you're heading out, let's take it out to the street. I'm like, dude, we're leaving. Just, I'm backing out here. She's your girlfriend. I didn't know you were hot and heavy, whatever. So he kind of follows us out. My roommate, Jim, was a college wrestler, short, just like built like a frickin' rock. And Jim's like, dude, if you're going to take somebody down, we're going. And this guy kind of like didn't charge after me, but was still wanting to fight.
Yeah.
And Jim's like, last chance, you're going down. And guy's like, fuck, I want to beat the shit out of this guy. And Jim just like in an instant, just boom, this guy was on the ground. And Jim's like, what the fuck did I tell you? You're going down. Lay off. And the guy's like, okay.
That's
Yeah.
Wrestlers are wicked devils with that.
Yeah.
And it's like I remember getting into a fight with a guy who was like 2 or even 4 years younger than I was, and he was a wrestler, and his arms are crossed, and we're in a group, and I'm kind of came at him, and boom, he threw me to the side. And I'm like, what the hell? That was okay. I'm coming at him again. Boom, boom, boom. Threw me to the side.
Yeah.
He did that 3 times. I don't think he even realized we were fighting. And I'm like, wow, that was done. And I'm not even thinking about anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
I had a friend similar to your friend. He not a huge guy, but very strong, well built. He actually played football for the Badgers.
Oh, okay.
Nicest guy, and he was the one guy, if we were out, that other guys seemed to pick on for no reason. He never did anything asking for it, but he would get picked on, and he would take it up to a certain point. And again, I'm thin and frail. My best friend is thin and frail. We knew it was going to be a problem when this buddy of ours he wore glasses, and he would take it up to a certain point, and we knew it was going to be a problem when he would take off his glasses
Oh,
and
boy.
hand them to one of us. And he would then proceed to just sort of wipe the floor with a couple of guys. And we'd be, this friend and I would take the glasses and go hide under the pool table somewhere.
Oh my god! It must be that liquid courage of the bar.
You know what? There's something else to it too, because there's I remember going to concerts with my buddy was playing in the band, and then a couple of the friends that were his friends too would go, and then we'd get into this dance thing, and all of a sudden the one guy would get into a fight, and the other guy would look around while they're in a fight in this group, trying to find somebody to grab to fight.
Wow.
And it's just like he wasn't even, and the guy punched this guy, and it's like, whoa, what did you even hit me for? And it was just like, because his mindset was so primitive in a way that he just grabbed somebody and start fighting for no darn reason.
Who was the band? Or
Matt Bertram's band.
Bertram, I was going to say.
And they had some bongo solos that would go on for 10 minutes. That was, and not just bongo, but the drum set and bongos and the whole percussion kit. And it was just hypnotic. But it would make you want to fight.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't
Very
think that's
tribal.
what it was.
This ukulele. I hear a ukulele. I want to punch.
Well, yeah, you think about those mosh pits. I mean,
That would be interesting.
yeah, like they, you're just in there, you're just swinging.
That's sort of what it was.
Yeah, just
it was a mosh pit.
aggressive.
I've been to a lot of concerts, and especially back then, you would be in a pretty tight crowd. It would almost be hard to get into a fight.
Yeah.
But it would be fun I wouldn't punch in a mosh pit, but just the bouncing around and shit like that. I think that would be kind of...
It's pretty aggressive, though. Dan's right.
Some of them, they use it like, let's just start swinging for fun.
Oh, yeah. I didn't set an official clock. I think we're at about... we're 22 minutes already.
Mm-hmm.
Should we roll a little bit longer, or should we wrap this
okay,
one
what
up?
else do we got for fights?
Well, I got a question, because I haven't officially heard. Have you ever made contact or been hit? Because I think you're the only one that maybe...
You know what? When I was pulling fights apart, I was pulling a fight apart in Menasha High School between two kids. And it's the teacher looked over at me, and I was during my sub-teaching, or my student teaching. And it's like, oh God, there's two kids right on top of each other. So I went in between them, grabbed the biggest one and grabbed him around the body, squeezed him tight and carried him away. Okay. Meanwhile, I didn't realize this big dude had the other guy by the hair. So I'm dragging the two apart. And then the other guy punched me solid in the back of the head without trying to hit me.
Just trying to get away.
Trying to get away. But it's like, ooh. And again, that adrenaline thing that you're talking about, it's kicking so hard that you don't even think about it. But yeah, as far as like getting popped in the face, other than, your brothers and it's something accidental or on purpose, but not to kill.
And again, I've never been punched in the face, but I just had the thought. I think I was in 6th grade during gym class, Sean Bazil, where we had to do, it was like kind of gymnastics unit. And so we were having to do a cartwheel or roundhouse or something. And I'm helping Sean, and a heel to my cheek. I don't think it knocked me over, but just bam. And the principal right away, who was the teacher at the time, she's like, that's swelling already. Let's get the ice. Called my mom, and just like parents that age, I don't think I went home. It's just like, hey, your son just got like a wheelhouse kick to the face. Well, if he's still alive, keep him there for the day.
I accidentally knocked a guy out and caused him to get stitches.
Jeez.
I was a student in a judo class. The instructor was a former naval officer who taught judo in the Navy.
Wow.
And he was using me again because I'm the lightest one in the class to demonstrate a move where, and if you study judo, you know that you put your hands on each other's shoulders, you sort of, and it's choreographed. You take a couple of steps. He does a leg sweep. He kicked my legs out from under me. I went up to his head height, kept going, came all the way to the top, and hit him so hard in the head, it split his head open and knocked him out.
The instructor?
The instructor.
Holy cow.
Nicest guy ever. Didn't hold it against me at all.
Well, what is he supposed to do? How could he?
But that was an interesting experience.
And you got up and bowed.
Thank you, Sensei.
Wow.
Damn.
Interesting. All right, so we're at 25 minutes. We can wrap this one up. Any
I
quick
got
final
nothing
thoughts,
else.
Dan?
I just want to thank Craig for this beautiful atmosphere, and
We're recording at my mommy's house right now.
Yeah,
really lovely.
We've got
Got a couple of stray cats and an oriole at the feeder back here. It's really
lot of background birds.
I saw a hummingbird. I saw, I think, a little woodpecker and an oriole. I mean, birds I have not seen in the city forever.
Wait till the snakes start coming out. I have no other words other than to close it. Tony, any?
I got nothing. Right?
Well,
I'll get punched
I would say that we really shouldn't talk about fights. That's the first rule of Fight Club.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Second rule
Right.
of Fight Club is to not. And you know what? The premise of that whole movie is about what you just talked about. What to start the thing off. Wonder what it's like to get punched in the face.
Yeah, to be
Ultimately,
alive, right? Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think, a human question, or at least a masculine question
Yeah.
that we could look at.
Although there's nothing like a really good cat fight.
Oh God, let's not even get going there.
All right, that just gave me a final thought.
Yeah.
I had a big family. I remember, I think it was Maureen and Daniil got in a cat fight. They were a couple years older than me.
Your
And
sisters.
Grab
Sisters,
the
yeah.
popcorn and pull the
And
chair.
one grabbed the other one and threw her into the refrigerator, and the refrigerator. Oops, sorry about that noise. The refrigerator went gunk, 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 gunk. Holy crap. Like, wow, that's a cat fight. And they were little. They were probably like 5th and 6th or 7th grade at the time. It was like,
man.
yikes.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it though. The best thing you can do from a fight is to get your butt out of there, or try to de-escalate the
Yeah.
situation. Nobody wins in a fight.
Mhm.
Nobody wins. And in today's world, that whole macho bullshit isn't quite what it was back when we were growing up.
It's still out there, but not.
It's
prevalent.
definitely out there, but yeah.
All right, cool. So close up this episode on Fight Club. Thanks for listening and or video watching. We're pointing and waving and toodaloos and smoking our pipes. So now, if it was just audio, you don't need.
Yeah, we got to figure out what we're going to do.
Would you do audio end credits for an audio?
You could.
Yeah, because
There are some
Conan does
audio
a brief
credits.
little, I think.
I just hope we don't sound like a bunch of wimps.